Vision boards, visualizing, affirmations. The single biggest reason why people don't manifest is because they're trying to create in a way they're not designed to create. If you want to really create what you want in your life, you have to create correctly according to your human design. Hi, I'm Karen Curry Parker. Welcome to Activating Your Quantum Abundance. This program is going to be a great program for you. In this program, we're going to unpack why sometimes those manifesting techniques actually don't work. And we're going to talk about exactly what you need to do to activate your natural state of abundance by design. We don't all create in the same way, and using a one-size-fits-all formula for manifesting doesn't work for everyone. In this program, my goal is to help you find your way to create what you want to manifest the life you intend to live. I'm so excited for you to go through this program and finally tap into your natural creative power and the abundance that you deserve. I hope you enjoy it.
I really want you tonight to not work really hard to take notes and be super intellectual about this. I really want you to just relax and enjoy this information and use it to trigger some new ways of thinking about things. I have a lot of stuff I want to share with you tonight. Before I get started, just quickly, I want to talk about just two quick things. Number one, I got a letter recently, an email recently from someone who said to me, I thought this was such an interesting comment. This lady said to me, "You're always so happy and positive." She said, "I really can't take you seriously. I need to know that sometime in your life you've suffered and you've had some kind of pain that was a catalyst for your life." And I'm like, "Boy, lady, we don't have enough time to go through the whole story." But and I, you know what, I really appreciate it because I'm making light of it because it's, I'm not in that dark place anymore for sure, and I'm grateful for that. And I think that when people teach us, it's important that I don't like the word teacher, first of all. I'm not really a teacher. We're all here. We're all in this process of remembering and reawakening. Today, I'm in the role of being the one with the big button that mutes you all. There will be other days when you all have the mute button and I'm listening to you. So we're not in it. I don't like teacher student because it's got this weird thing. I don't like that position of teacher student. We're all in this together. And every one of us that begins to make strong strides towards awakening a deeper sense of our creative capacity adds to the capacity of all of us being able to do that. That being said, I cut my teeth in the personal growth and development arena on teaching prosperity. And part of the reason why I taught prosperity, I have literally taught prosperity and abundance classes since I was 25 years old, and that's more than half my life now, okay? And the reason why I taught it was because I sucked at it. I have been bankrupt. I have been over $80,000 in debt. I have lost a house to foreclosure. There have been many times in my life where I have literally in the middle of the night run after the repo man trying to get my car back, or at least get the car seat out of the back seat of the car. I was a single mom raising 4 kids by myself. And then for whatever reason, the universe thought it would be cool to add a 5th kid to the mix. So I was on my own raising these kids full-time support for 10 years. It was not an easy ride. And there were many, many times, I know this comes up for a lot of my students. There are many times when I said, I have to just go get a regular job. I can't do this anymore. But I also was not very employable. I mean, I've only had one job my whole life for about 6 months, and that was it. I can't work for other people. It doesn't work for me. I'm a manifesting generator. And I move fast. So the bottom line is, the material that I taught around abundance, I taught mostly because I needed to do it every week. I needed to be in this material over and over again because I had learning to do. This was my place, and it's in my chart. This was my place of learning how to connect with source. Some of you might have money as that same place where you do this same lesson. Some of you may be doing it in different arenas. Some of you might be doing it in relationships. Some of you might be doing it with health. Some of you might be doing it with your spiritual connections. Some of you may be doing it with your lifestyle. There's lots of places where we structure for ourselves opportunities to learn, to grow and trust and have faith. And in fact, the importance of learning to have faith right now in this time on the planet is so crucial that when I talk about abundance, I want you to understand, and this is the thing I really want you to walk away with tonight. I am not talking about, yeah, go make a bunch of money and go get a big house and a big fancy schmancy car that, you are too scared to drive because it's too nice and you don't want to park anywhere because you're afraid you'll get a door pecked, right? Those of you who have the gate 21, that's your fear, right? This is not about money, really. It's about giving yourself a reminder of your pure creative capacity and how it is that you are designed to manifest and create. Make sense? Bottom line is, I get it. If money is where you've been struggling, I get it. And one of the things I want you to understand is it's not about the money. Ultimately, it's about learning how to create. I actually watched a video today on Facebook. Somebody was Facebook living, and they were like walking with their phone, right? This is what they look like talking to the Facebook Live as they open their garage where their Mercedes was. I'm like, oh my gosh, really? I love that people are abundant and they want to share that, but I want us to not lock ourselves into thinking this is the definition of abundance. It might not be that for you. So, okay, you ready? Let's talk about activating your quantum abundance. And while we're doing that, I want to gently remind you that you are a fractal or a holographic representation of the quantum field. Contained within you is the infinite potential of the quantum field. So it's not that you have limitations. Sometimes when we talk about human design, people say, oh, it's so limiting. It's not like you have limitations on your creative capacity. There are parameters through which you experience the quantum field through your design, but you have an infinite creative capacity and the creative capacity to make things happen in your life, to be abundant. All of that's in you. We just need to talk about different ways and different perspectives to wake that back up. In human design, and actually even in some sacred texts, for example, in the Bible, they say God makes man in his image, right? What I think, and again, I'm not a religious person, so if I'm stepping on religious toes, forgive me. But what I think is really in that statement is that contained within us is the essence or the fractal or the holographic capacity for us to create in the same way that divine energy is able to create. If you believe that the universe is abundant, and if you believe that within us is the code for creativity, divine creativity, then you'll come to understand as I show you this, that abundance is actually hardwired into who we are. And in the next little section, I'm just going to show you how the human design chart actually contains the code for abundance. So this is really a general conversation about human design, this, at least right now in this section. And I don't want you to go running to your chart and go, oh my God, I don't have any of the markers for abundance in my chart. I'm doomed. Okay. Nobody's doomed. And we are all hardwired to experience abundance. In fact, what I want you to really understand is we all have all of the chart. We all have all of the chart. Some of you have a specific way of experiencing certain pieces of the chart. Some of you have an unlimited way of experiencing other pieces of the chart. Wherever you have defined, you have more fixed ways of experiencing the energy. So anything that's colored in is more consistent for you. Anything in your chart that's white means you can experience that energy in an unlimited way. So we all have all of the chart. Remember that. That's hugely important. Okay, so that I don't want to hear any of you go, but I don't have this gate or I don't have that gate. You all have the gate. You just don't have it defined necessarily. So let's start first with the gate 14. The gate 14 is the only place in the chart where we see the potential of working for money. Okay, I really want you to get that piece. It's the only place where we see the potential for working for money. But it's on the sacral center. This gate is actually called possession in great measure. And if you have this gate defined, you will be likely to consistently respond to opportunities to create money. But notice that I said the word respond. Nobody is designed to get an idea, take that idea, put it out into the world, push really hard, and force it into happening. We are designed to respond to by virtue of the universe bringing to us opportunities. We are designed to respond to taking those ideas or those opportunities and working them and then creating money or resources or connections or everything else that can potentially make money. The second gate in the chart that is about the energy of abundance is the gate 2. The gate 2 is actually what we call the most yin or the most feminine or the most receptive of the hexagrams. If you look at the hexagram, it's actually a yin-yin hexagram, if you're familiar with the I Ching, meaning it's a purely receptive energy. So what's so powerful about this is the one place where we are designed to work to create money is the place where the opportunities for work are presented to us. We don't have to figure it out. And then that energy flows into the second gate that says, oh, and by the way, you're designed to receive, which by the way, most of us suck at. That's one of the biggest things we need to work at, is allowing ourselves to receive all of the resources you need to fulfill your life purpose. Why? This is on the G center. The reason why is because you exist. Not because of what education you have, not because of what job you have, not because of the connections you have in society, not because how cute you are, but because you exist, you are designed to receive everything you need to fulfill your purpose. The next energy here that's associated with abundance is the 22. The gate 22 is the gate of grace. The energy of the 22 says that when I surrender and I stay in the flow of my faith about abundance, meaning when I trust spirit as source and I let go and I let spirit unfold the plan in front of me. I don't try to figure it out, but I let go and I trust the plan. When I surrender, I receive all the resources I need to do what I came here to do and make the world a better place. No work here either, by the way. This is on the solar plexus. This is all about emotional energy, which we'll talk about in a minute. The gate 55, which is actually called the gate of abundance. The gate 55 is also on the emotional solar plexus. It's about emotional energy. It's about holding an emotional frequency. The gate 55 says, when I have the faith and I trust in source, wait, we've heard this before, right? When I have the faith and I trust in source, I will have all the resources I need in alignment with that faith, in alignment with my capacity to hold my emotional frequency at a level that supports my creative capacity. Okay? None of this is about working. It's about holding a particular frequency of energy, which we'll talk about in a little bit. When I can hold this vision, when I can hold this energy, when I can hold this emotion around what I want to create and I trust spirit, then I'll get everything I need to fulfill my purpose and my destiny. One of the things I want you to note here is that by definition in the human design chart, the gate 55 is associated with digestion and assimilation. If you think about the nature of health and wellness and digestion and assimilation, if we eat too much, it's not healthy. If we don't eat enough, it's not healthy. We are actually designed physiologically and, of course, energetically to be sufficient, meaning we are designed to have and to be enough. And the more we are aligned with the energy of being, having, aligning with, knowing that, holding the energy for having enough, that means not freaking out if you think you don't have enough for tomorrow, because tomorrow is covered energetically. That means not taking more than you need. That means not hoarding. That means not compromising and settling for less than what you need. When we can be in an understanding and a definition of abundance that is sufficient rather than overabundant, and I think part of what happens for us, especially in the Western world, is we're overabundant. We're abundant to the degree to which it actually isn't healthy for us sometimes. And I'm just going to gently encourage you to think about this for a minute. How many of you have more stuff than you need? I mean, like, not just like, oh, I love my stuff. I mean, how many of you have stuff that you don't really even love that you have, right? Maybe some of you don't, but I know that that's a big adventure in my life. Okay. Plus I live with someone who has an open spleen. The key to creating abundance is really here in the solar plexus. It's really about holding an emotional frequency. Okay, your emotional frequency, the energies around the emotions that you have, the belief that you have in your abundance is a key player in creating abundance. And it has nothing, and this is the most important thing I want you to walk away with tonight, has nothing to do with work. It has nothing to do with trying to figure out the next new idea, the next new opportunity. What do I need to start? What kind of business do I need to have? If I look at my chart, what's my life purpose and what kind of work do I need to do in terms of my life purpose so I can create more money? These are the kinds of questions people ask me all the time. It's about being in a specific emotional frequency, and it's an emotional frequency that then ultimately calibrates your heart center, and that heart center then attracts into your field opportunities and experiences that are a reflection of that emotional frequency. So if you think about the nature of being abundant by virtue of our hardwiring is not about what we do. It's not about, being perseverant to the point to where you erode the quality of your life and your own level of well-being. It's not about figuring it out. It's about holding a frequency of energy. It's about sustaining that frequency of energy. So before we can talk about that, we have to talk about the quantum science of creativity. So some of you have heard me talk about this before, but it's simple, it's basic, and if you can integrate this into your deeper understanding, this is really literally the keys to the kingdom. There are different components of information in our aura or in the cloud in which we exist, the energy cloud in which we exist. And we have the capacity through consciousness and awareness and understanding to be able to leverage the levels of information that we carry in our energy field in order for us to be able to enhance and increase the probability of us creating what we really want in our reality. So let's talk about those different levels of information that you have access to at any given point in time, those different levels of possibilities. And let's talk about what actually influences how and what you create in your physical manifest reality. So the first thing that I want you to understand is there's a quantum field. We're just going to call it the quantum field. Some people call it the field. Some people call it, there's all kinds of complex vocabulary words. We're just going to call it the quantum field, or sometimes just to keep it super simple, we're going to say this is the world of non-manifested reality. This is the world of potential. Okay? So where you are right now, sitting in this very spot, you have available to you an innumerable number of potential possibilities for how you could be experiencing your life right now in the chair that you're sitting in watching this computer. That's what's contained within the quantum field, limitless potential, okay? The next layer of information that you have access to is called the mental and the emotional body. This is your conditioning, meaning this is the beliefs that you have. This is where you store the energy of all the memories you have. This is where you store the energy of the memories of the traumas you've experienced, the joys you've experienced. This is where you store the energy of the belief systems you carry. This is where your epigenetic programming lives. And this is actually where your human design lives too. So whenever we interface with the quantum field of infinite possibilities, our mental and emotional body is sort of like a filter that we work through or we connect with through to connect with the quantum field. And that mental emotional body influences what we pluck or what we choose out of the quantum field. Once we choose something out of the quantum field, it then actually manifests in an energy template. We call this the subtle body. Some of you may be familiar with Rupert Sheldrake's work around morphogenetic fields. This is the morphogenetic field. This is an energy blueprint for what you're about to manifest. Abraham Hicks calls this your vortex, right? Or an escrow, your vibrational escrow. That's what they call it, right? This is your vibrational escrow. You have all the stuff you're creating hovering in vibrational form in your aura. This is where you store whatever is potentially going to manifest into your life. You still have time to change it if it's only in the subtle body template. If you don't like it and it's coming at you, you can change it. If you've ever gone to get acupuncture, or if you've ever used homeopathy or flower essences or essential oils, These are the modalities that actually work on this subtle body template or this energy template. The next level of information is actually your manifested reality, your life right now. Your life right now is simply a collection of what we call collapsed quantum potentials that you have brought through or dragged through your mental and emotional body, you've had in your vibrational escrow or in your subtle body, and eventually you have actually made them manifest in your physical life. So this is your relationships, your health and wellness, your bank account, your jobs, everything about your tangible physical reality is in this level of information. And it is a reflection of your conditioning, your subtle body, and what you plucked, what you chose out of the quantum field as possibilities to make manifest in your life. Just a different way of looking at this same information, just trying to present it in a couple of different ways. In this particular image, we have the physical body, subtle body, mental body, emotional body, and the quantum field. Some people can measure it and see this sort of this way. So the physical body is your manifest reality. The vital body is your blueprint for the physical. The mental and the emotional body are the conditioning field. And the supramental is the quantum field or the non-manifest reality. You will create your reality. We talk about this all the time, right? I create my own reality. But who are you? Who are you really? Who's the you that's creating that reality? That is probably, I think personally, if you're going to really look at shifting your attitude about abundance, the very first and most important question for you to ask yourself is, who are you? Who are you really? Because oftentimes what happens is we think we're something we're not. And we're creating from that person that we think we are instead of the person who we really are. So if you think about this for a minute, you are not the form of your life. You are the space. You're actually quite fluid. The person you were 5 years ago, this to me is the funny part about staying mad at someone. You know, are you the same person you were 5 years ago? No. So do you think that other person is either? It's like you're mad at a ghost, right? So anyway, you're fluid. You can manifest all kinds of different potentials. And as you change and experience the world, your physical reality and your sense of yourself and your identity changes. You are the space, not the form. And the space that you are is your consciousness. Consciousness is the rocket fuel that creates. Okay, so if you go back to this model, which I like this model because it's very simple to draw on, consciousness is the mediator that determines what you choose out of the infinite realm of possibilities, the quantum field, what your conditioning is, how your conditioning influences what you choose, what you hold in your energy template, and ultimately what you actually make manifest in your physical life. Okay, quantum scientists are scientists that measure subatomic particles. What quantum scientists have learned is that you can either measure the movement of a particle or the location of a particle, but you can't measure both at the same time. The minute you measure something that's moving, you have to stop it from moving to measure its location. This becomes really important when we start to look at the mechanics of how we manifest, okay? You can only measure movement or location, not at the same time. Movement, the quantum field is all about movement. It's only potential, and it contains infinite potential. Location, whenever we measure a potential, we actually give it location. And then once we give it location, it actually makes it manifest. What determines what we manifest? It's meaning, okay? The meaning we give things determines what we make manifest. Okay, the meaning you give things, including the meaning you give money, is determined by the conditioning field. Okay, to create what you want in your life, you have to give or you have to ascribe a meaning that's in alignment with what you're wanting. All right, so let's go back and look at this. Here's just a different way of looking at my model here. Here we have the quantum field of infinite possibilities. Your conditioning, the beliefs you have, your epigenetic programming, the experiences you've had, the traumas you've had, the things your mother said, things that happened to you before you were even born, all of that cloud of information in your aura, your conditioning, the places where you've taken in information from others in the open parts of your human design, all of that information influences what meanings you give potentials and which potentials you end up manifesting in your life right now. So stop for just a second here. And I want you just for a minute to think about money. Look at this picture. Now, this is a picture of paper with stuff printed on it. And this is paper that we give each other in exchange for services and goods. It's actually kind of a neutral thing, right? It's just money. But we each, every one of us, have our own meaning that we attach to that word. And that meaning that you give money, this archetype, money's an archetype, the meaning you give the archetype of money determines a lot about how you experience money in your physical, tangible world. So if you don't like the way money is showing up in your world right now, or whatever, again, this isn't just about money. This is about you creating a life that's in alignment with who you truly are. And if the things in your life are showing up and you don't like them, you'd rather them be different, then you have to look at strategies to start changing the meaning. Now, I want to just tell you this, that you can change meaning instantaneously. You can do ritual. There are all kinds of things you can do to change money. But you change money to change meaning. And I do want to also say that there are a lot of people out in the world who will promise you, instant ATM cash machine trainings, right? You click your heels together 3 times, change your mindset, and poof, voila, it's gone, right? I mean, if you listen, there's so many abundance teachers out there that will just say, you can change your mind and it takes 60 seconds of holding that mindset and voila, you shift it. Yes, it's possible. And I'm not saying that's not possible. And I'm certainly not saying you have to work really hard and struggle and suffer to change the meanings that you give money. But I do want to just lovingly and gently say that there's a lot of research that's come out in the last 5 years, especially, the last 2 years, especially, about epigenetic programming and the fact that a lot of the archetypes that you carry in your mind around meaning, all the meanings you carry in your mind, especially around money or food or whatever, some of those things that are up there are actually in your cells, and they're in your cells before you're even born. Now, I'm telling you this not because I'm saying, oh, this is a big thing and you should give up. I'm telling you this because I want you to be compassionate towards yourself. And I want you to understand that there are now modalities, healing modalities out here in the world that have evolved, especially in the last 17 years, that have been scientifically proven to be able to, with just even 1 hour of application, change your genetic structure to make the meanings you give your life and the meanings you choose different. So we're in a time of accelerated possibility and accelerated potential for realignment. And I really want you to get that. And I want you to also be really compassionate towards yourself if you feel like you've been working at trying to manifest for years and years and years and it hasn't worked. It's because it's a lot more complex than just change your mind, poof, voila, money in the bank. Okay? So please be compassionate with yourselves. And also please know that our ability to start changing ourselves on a genetic level, our capacity and our understanding has gone way, way up. And I think that understanding is going to get faster and faster and faster as we continue to evolve. So let's talk about conditioning, because it's conditioning that's influencing the meanings you're probably carrying in your life. There are 5 kinds of conditioning that we talk about in human design. And let me just tell you that some of the ways that I talk about conditioning, if you've studied with any other human design teacher, I talk about it a little bit differently than other teachers. I think there are more things that influence us than just openness. So in traditional human design, we talk about conditioning that happens in your openness. Wherever you have white in your chart, openness is where you take energy and information in from the world around you. You don't just take it in, you take it in and you amplify it. So we have a tendency in our open centers to experience other people's energies in an amplified way. And because of that, we have a tendency to think that we are what we're not. We think that we are the energy we're experiencing from other people, and we lose connection with our own authentic self and what's true for us. And when we are around people consistently, we experience other people's energy in an amplified way to such a degree, we truly forget sometimes who we are and what we want. When you have openness, it also creates predictable behavior patterns. Each center has a sort of a predictable drama that it lives out when it's open. And that drama that it's living out is oftentimes a result of a mistaken identity that you have about yourself, and also a misinterpretation of how you experience energy. And that misinterpretation of how you experience energy oftentimes gives you meanings about yourself and your life that aren't correct and don't create in alignment with what you genuinely really want. The second way that we are conditioned or taken away from our authentic desire is we're imprinted by our family of origin. Human design is mechanics, and it's mechanical, and certainly, there are mechanics about how we interact, energetically. But, there's also neurobiology, there's also love, there's also our experience of watching our parents' behaviors and choices, there's also religious training, there's our education. There's so much that goes into creating our identity other than just the mechanics of our energy. So we are imprinted by our families and by our families' behaviors, and that certainly will affect your conditioning. The other thing that's really interesting to look at is that we have a tendency mechanically towards having intergenerational energy patterns. You actually inherit your human design from your grandparents. Your parents inherit their human design from their grandparents. So what happens is you have an energetic theme, and that energetic theme skips generations. So you actually have two energetic themes, and they're interplaying between each other in various positions and generations. So you have the same energy oftentimes as your grandparents. Your parents have to deal with the issues that they had with their parents through the energy field of you as a child, only now they're doing it from a different perspective. And if you can really understand that these energy dynamics repeat intergenerationally over and over again, you first of all start to see why it's important to clear up your own conditioning, because you actually can affect the generational energy patterns for your whole family in both directions, both with your parents and both with your own children. And it also sometimes explains a lot about why we tend to have family patterns that just keep repeating over and over and over again. It's an intergenerational family dynamic. Your genetics are going to influence your conditioning. And in fact, the emerging field of epigenetics now shows us that things that happened to your family generations, literally generations before you were born, can influence the meanings you give potentials. There's a whole new set of research that just came out by a woman named Rachel Yehuda, who studied PTSD in Jewish children in New York City. And what she found was that there was a higher than average rate of anxiety disorders in children who were grandchildren and great-grandchildren of Holocaust survivors. And these children had no incidences in their lives that would in any way, shape, or form trigger anxiety or trigger PTSD. And some of them literally had PTSD around Holocaust issues. So when they went back, they were actually able to see that the genetic coding, the protein coding around the DNA had actually factors in it that were influencing how the adrenal glands worked in these children. And they could see that the themes of the trauma from the Holocaust that happened generations before these kids were born were impacting the biophysiology and the neurobiology of these kids who had nothing to do with the Holocaust. They were being raised in New York City in a really safe environment, and they weren't, they were just being triggered because of things that had happened before they were even born. So some of you may have, think about this for a minute, some of you may have programming on a genetic level around money. In the 1920s and the 1930s in America, things were really, really bad here. We had a Great Depression. And I don't know, when my husband's grandmother died, she had been raised in West Texas, and they had been young adults with children, small children in the Depression. And when she died, every drawer had tiny little bits of string and tape and, paper clips. She did not throw anything away because she was so scarred from the extreme poverty that they had experienced in the Depression. They didn't even have a house. They lived in a railroad car. And then they lived in a tent because her husband was a roustabout on oil wells in West Texas. So some of you may be carrying on a genetic level the imprinting from deep poverty in the 1920s and 30s. So think about that. Some of what might be happening to you around the meetings you choose, or the fear that, oh, I'm going to lose it all. And that's a common one that a lot of us have. Like, if I get money, I'm going to lose it, right? So I'd rather not have it in the first place. That's not an uncommon fear around money. And I'm wondering, in light of this new information, how much of that is genetic? The last and final place where we get conditioned, or maybe not the only places we get conditioned, but the last thing I'm going to talk about tonight is the design crystal. At the moment of your conception, your father's energy calls forth out of the earth a design crystal that is paired with the magnetic monopole, which becomes the magnet that takes up residence in your heart center. The design crystal contains within it the story of your life in this incarnation. It's the blueprint for your life path. Okay, it's your life purpose, and everything about your life story is contained in this information crystal. That information crystal also, by the way, carries the blueprint, the morphogenetic field, and the code for how your body will develop for your physical form. It actually contains the template for your physical form. That design crystal is then taken in with your father's energy into your mother, and it actually orchestrates the evolution of your being from a cellular level into a young, little fetus that's born with hands and legs and eyes and everything. At the moment of your birth, that design crystal takes up residence in the ajna. When you die, that design crystal goes back into the earth. It's like an earth suit, and it has the potential to be worn again by another soul. When you become this design crystal, it meshes with your soul crystal, your personality crystal. When you die, the personality crystal goes back up, your soul element and your soul purpose goes out of the earth and back up into the ethers. The design crystal goes back in the earth. This design crystal that is you right now in this lifetime, the story that is you, even the elements of this body that is you, it may have been worn before. Okay, this is where our quote unquote past life memories and stuff exist. And some of us are carrying conditioning in our design crystal story that comes from things that happened to this story that you're living before you began to live it. So here's something just to think about. This gets a little weird, but roll with me here for just a minute. One of the things that I used to do with some of my clients is I would say, sometimes we would just hit a wall. We just hit a wall with clearing stuff, and we couldn't figure out where it would come from, especially around money. So we would do things like rescind old oaths. Now, a lot of my students, that might be a lot of you are what I call light workers. A lot of you are involved in healing professions or studying spirituality. You wouldn't be on this call if you weren't in some way interested in woo-woo stuff, right? Okay. How many of you are wearing a design crystal that has a story of having been a spiritual servant, a spiritual seeker for many, many lifetimes? How many of you are wearing a design crystal that was a midwife, a witch, a herbologist, a healer of some kind? And maybe over the course of your lifetimes or the lifetimes of your design crystal, you took a vow of poverty. Or you took a vow of martyrdom as part of your service. That wasn't an uncommon thing in certain circles, right? So how many of you are in your design crystal maybe carrying that oath with you as part of the story of who you have been with this design crystal? So sometimes we have to get a little weird when we look at what's keeping us stuck and blocked, and is there something in the archetype that we're wearing that is carrying consciousness and agreements and deals that we made before this design crystal was worn, when whoever was wearing the suit before was wearing it. Does that make sense? Let me just throw this out here. I believe that one of the reasons why there are so many people on the planet right now is that we have all agreed as souls to come here right now and do our work to clear all of these crystals so that we can shift and change the consciousness level on the planet, so that when these crystals go back in the ground and work on, that we've got we've got much more clear archetypes that can be expressed without all this conditioning from what's come before. But that's personal belief. I have no proof of that. It's just sort of what I sense. All right, so back to our little thing about conditioning. If we were going to make another diagram here, this is where your conditioning would live in this diagram, right? Your human design. Or if we were to look at this diagram, your human design is going to influence. It's like a filter through which you connect with the quantum field of infinite possibilities. That's not a bad thing, by the way. Sometimes, as I said, people tell me all the time, don't you think that's so limiting? The truth is, when you're making choices out of the quantum field, when you're pulling down into your manifest experience, things that are in alignment with your human design, yes, it's limiting, but it's good to be limited. If you ever take, okay, I live in Minnesota. In Minnesota, we have the Mall of America, which is like the biggest mall, one of the biggest malls in the world. And all the stores in the Mall of America are overly abundant. And there's a candy store at the Mall of America. If I take my child to this candy store in the Mall of America, we're going to be in that store for at least 2 or 3 hours because she can't choose. It's too much. You actually want to have a little bit of limits on what you pull out of the quantum field, because there's so many things you could pick. If you didn't have a little bit of a guideline, you'd be stuck forever going, I want that, no, I want that, no, I want that, I want that, no, I want that. And it would be hard to pick, okay? So your human design, when you're living true to yourself and you've taken out the conditioning element and you're really living in alignment with that chart, it doesn't feel limiting. It feels good because it's who you are and it's what's right for you, and it makes you happy. It's actually supposed to make you happy, and it's your way of experiencing what's true for you in the way of abundance. You get to experience your level of abundance, your kind of abundance, the abundance that's right for you, that feels right for you. So let's talk about, where do we get challenged? Where are our places of greatest challenge when it comes to aligning with our natural state of abundance? The first thing that happens is, a lot of times we're struggling to create wealth, in particular money, because we have this really strong conditioned belief that says the only way you can make money is to work for it. And if you want to make more money, you have to work harder for it, right? When we are not working in a way or creating wealth in a way that's right for us by design, it doesn't actually create more wealth. It actually pushes wealth away and causes us to get burned out. And whenever you're burned out, it's very hard to create. The second reason why sometimes we end up struggling with money or struggling with manifesting is that sometimes we're trying to manifest something we really don't want. We're actually trying to manifest something we think we should want, or we're trying to manifest something we've been conditioned to think we should want, or sometimes we've cooked up an elaborate plan that says, I'm going to work really hard for 5 years and sock away a ton of money, but I hate my job. I don't care. I'll just do it for 5 years. And then after 5 years, I'll retire, and then I'll go do what I really want. And if we're not really pursuing what we really want, it's very difficult to create, because you're actually designed to create what you want. And sometimes we get stuck and blocked because we think, oh, I want this thing, I'm going to manifest it. And the truth is, we like the idea, it's a great concept, but it's not actually what you really, really want. There is no one-size-fits-all way to manifest. And I really want you to get that, because there's so many people out there that are teaching formulas and systems for creating. There's only one way, and that's your way. And that might be very different than somebody else's way. And there might not even be a guru who can lead you to finding what that way might be. You might have to be your own guru and figure out your own way. But I will tell you that the more you live true to your type, the more you'll get clear about what you need to do to create what you want in your life. So, as you know, there are 5 energy types in the human design system: manifestors, generators, manifesting generators, projectors, and reflectors. Manifestors have a non-verbal creative flow, meaning part of their creative capacity and their ability to manifest comes from their own inner attunement to a creative flow that moves through them, that's non-verbal. The important thing for a manifestor to understand is that for you to create, particularly for you to manifest, you have to be attuned. You have to be attuned and know how to hear and understand your own inner creative flow. Now, the challenge for the manifestor is that there are lots of different ways to be hardwired to be a manifestor. And it's actually, unlike generators and manifesting generators, and even projectors and reflectors, there isn't very much of a formula for a manifestor. Every manifestor is truly kind of their own experiment in terms of learning how to connect to their own inner creative flow. And that can be the biggest challenge for the manifestor in learning how to create. Because for the manifestor to truly manifest, They have to know how they interface with that nonverbal creative flow. And it is to a certain degree sometimes an experiment, which is why sometimes, even though we all think we want to be a manifester, sometimes when the manifester first learns about human design, if you're a manifester and you're first learning about human design, sometimes really understanding the manifester strategy is confusing because it's not really formulaic in the way that it can be for some of the other types. It really is about you have to be your own inner authority and you have to trust your own inner connection to divine flow flowing through you. And that's a little tricky. The thing that's really important for you to understand if you are a manifester in terms of the creative process is not only do you have to be attuned to that nonverbal creative flow, whatever physical work you do in relation to manifesting or creating money, you have to understand that you are not sustainable in the way that, say, a generator type is. And so it's very important for manifestors when they're creating around money. Manifestors really need to take into consideration, especially, gosh, if I can grab every manifestor while they're still in their 20s, that it's important for you to make sure that you're socking money away and that you have savings, if you can, so that when you do need cycles of rest, cycles of recalibration, cycles to regenerate and restore your energy, you have the financial base to be able to take the time off from work, because you're not designed to work like other people. You don't have work energy. You have initiation energy. You have creative energy. You have get things rolling energy, but don't do all the scut work that goes along with getting things up and built. That's not the manifestor energy. So you have to have built into your wealth cycle cycles where you can rely on either savings or a semi-passive revenue stream so that you have the opportunity to rest and restore and regenerate when you need to. Generators, as much as you bemoan the fact that you are a generator, you actually have it easiest, I believe, frankly. Generators have one theme around wealth, and it's mastery over time. Generators are here to be masterful at something. Now, that doesn't mean only one thing. Some of you will be generators who are masterful at different cycles of things. You may have 2 or 3 or 4 cycles of mastery over the course of your life. Okay, so if you're on your 2nd or 3rd level of mastery with a different thing, don't beat yourself up. You didn't miss the boat. But you are here to be masterful, and that mastery comes from responding, getting stuck and sitting on plateaus, waiting for the breakthrough, responding and getting stuck and waiting for the breakthrough and getting stuck and waiting for the breakthrough and getting stuck. And each time you go through these cycles of growth and expansion and then getting stuck and growth and expansion, getting stuck, and then you're responding and responding all along the way, you're increasing your ability to be masterful at the material plane. What happens, though, a lot of times is the frustration of being a generator causes you to quit. And what happens in the manifesting process for the generator sometimes is that they quit too soon because they're not seeing the evidence and they feel like they're putting all this energy into it and they're stuck and nothing's happening, so they give up. And then they quit, and because they've quit, they kind of have to recalibrate and start over again, or they end up having to do a patch-up Band-Aid job and leap into something that's not really what they wanted, but they'll compromise. And because the generator energy types can compromise, you're not going to burn out in the way that a manifestor or a projector or a reflector will. You'll burn out, but you'll still be able to go to work. You'll just burn out and come home and watch Netflix because life doesn't have any joy anymore. But you can still get up and go do the things you have to do. So for the generator type to become masterful at manifesting, they have to learn to understand how to wait effectively, and how to respond, and how to avoid quitting when it feels like something's not moving. The key for the generator, and if you're a generator type, this is really important to understand in terms of creating. The more frustrated you are, that's actually a sign that you're getting closer to having the breakthrough for the next level or closer to the manifestation. And if the frustration causes you to quit before it pops, then you don't get to see the fruit of what you've been working towards. The manifesting generator is here to find the shortcuts to mastery. Okay, it's the job of the manifesting generator to find the shortcut through whatever it is they're creating. The manifesting generator has a similar energy quality to a manifestor in that, just like the manifestor, they also have this internal nonverbal creative flow. When they do respond, they can move fast. And sometimes they don't know whether they're responding or they're creating, because there's a very blurred line, because that reaction or that responding happens so quickly that sometimes they don't know what it is that they've responded to that pushes them into action. It gets tricky for the manifesting generator because of this, because sometimes they're initiating and then getting deeply frustrated because they actually didn't respond. They just moved so fast because they had an idea and they initiated, and it really wasn't correct because they didn't wait to respond. So the biggest challenge sometimes for the manifesting generator in terms of manifesting is also learning not to quit, just like for the generators, but also learning not to move so fast that you miss the opportunity to respond. Sometimes manifesting generators are moving so fast, it's hard for the universe to find them, to give them something to respond to, because by the time the universe shows up, they've already left. So you have to wait for things to respond to and then leap into it, and not let the frustration and sometimes the frustration and the anger cause you to quit, or not just quit, but move so fast that you can't be in one place to receive the thing you're waiting to respond to. Projectors. The biggest challenge for projectors is they have to find ways to create that allow them to be sustainable. And here's the thing I want to tell you guys. The number one reason why I believe most people are struggling to create what they want in their life is this. They're burned out. Most of you, I would say, to some degree, are burned out. And when you are burned out, and you get burned out from not living true to yourself, if you are saying no when you want to say yes, if you're saying yes when you want to say no, if you're doing things you don't want to do, but you feel like you have to, if you feel like you don't have any choices and you just have to go get a job or put up with something that you really don't want, even anytime you're compromising yourself, you're using energy. It takes a lot of energy to hold up a mask. It takes a lot of energy to be something you're not. And even if you're not in full-on burnout where you have to lay on the couch every afternoon, most of you are probably walking around, at least at some point in your life, maybe not now because you've all been following your strategy for years, but some of you are still struggling with a low grade of burnout that's causing you to not be able to manifest, because what you really want to be manifesting is time off. And what you really want to be manifesting is a break. What you really want to be manifesting is downtime. And your being, your real being, your creative capacity knows that. And as much as your head's up there going, well, I can't take a break and I don't have the money and your head's like doing all this stuff, your being is going, no, I just want a break. So I'm not going to manifest any more clients. I don't want clients. I want a nap, right? And so we think we're not manifesting. We think we're stuck. But in fact, what we're doing is creating exactly what we need to be creating in order to restore our energy so we can get back to work, doing what we really want to be doing and creating what we really want to be creating. Okay, projectors. Projectors are our midwives to the universe. They hold the template for the new world in their energy system. And part of their spiritual job is to keep the template of what we're creating, the subtle body of the planet, alive and well and vibrant. That's hard work, by the way. You can be a projector laying on the couch holding the earth together and be burned out because that's a hard job. So don't think because you're not, quote unquote, doing anything as a projector that you're not doing anything. You're actually always doing stuff. You're working very hard to hold us all together. Thank you. So we say the projector is a midwife to the universe. Projectors have to wait to be invited or recognized. And many projectors do not have energy. They're already burned out. And what most projectors are really wanting to create is downtime. And as a projector, you can't go out and just make it happen. But everybody tells you that's what you should be doing. And so you try to do what everybody's telling you to do. So you go apply for a job because now you need some money. And you go apply for that job and then nobody calls you. And all your friends are saying, well, you should call them. So then you call them and they're like, what? Who are you? Click, right? Or they don't even take your call. Or they're like, oh, I don't know where your application went, right? Because that's how it happens for the projector. Not because the projector is bad or wrong, but because the projector has to be invited and recognized by the people who get the preciousness of who you are. You're not here to just help anybody, even though you can. You are here to help the people who get the value of what you bring to the table. And that means sometimes you have to wait a while for the right invitations. Now, What happens a lot of times to the projector is they run out of money in between waiting for the right invitations. So does that mean you can't get a job? If you run out of money, do whatever you have to do to get a job, just to get the bills paid. But do it with the awareness that, okay, this is what I'm doing while I'm waiting. And when you're not working, when you're at home, rest in between. Take care of yourself. Don't try to build a business on the side or do something like that. Take care of yourself and rest. And do the things that bring you joy and delight and energy and excitement while you're waiting. So that when those invitations come, those big invitations come, you will then be invited into the opportunities where you will be valued and supported for sharing the wisdom of who you are. So our reflectors, our last type here, reflectors are our canaries in the coal mine, so to speak. They are here to reflect back to us our own status. How are we doing? Our energy, our mindset, our capacity to create. They hold the vibrational frequency, amplify what we're doing, and reflect it back to us. So in a sense, they are karmic mirrors. Because the reflector is so open and because the reflector is a non-stackable being, they are just like manifestors and projectors, not designed to work sustainably. So just like manifestors and projectors, I didn't say this about projectors, but this is true for projectors too. They need to have, especially if I can grab you guys young, you need to have some kind of a reservoir of financial savings, an egg of some kind, nest egg of some kind, to be able to have to fall back on if you ever get burned out. That's crucial. And having that in place allows you to not make spontaneous and desperate decisions if the money situation gets dire. So you do need cycles of downtime, cycles of rest time. The trick for the reflector is recognizing that how they're experiencing wealth and abundance in their creative capacity is really more related to who they're with and who they're reflecting than to themselves. And the trick for the reflector is in their personal relationships, especially, they can get very enmeshed in their partnerships because their energy is so open. They're taking in so much from the people around them that it's difficult for them to connect with what's true and right for them and to create with what they really want, because they oftentimes lose clarity about what they really want because they're taking in and experiencing so much energy from the world around them. So really holding on to the answer to the question of who am I, and really being clear about who they are in the context of all the energy they're experiencing is crucial for the reflector. Okay, so you've got to know what you want. You're going to create what you want. You have to know what you want, which means you have to be connected with who you are. What keeps us from knowing what we want? Conditioning. Remember, we talked about openness by center, that when you have open centers, your open centers take in energy and they create predictable energy patterns. So let's look at that for example. Here we have on the right-hand side an open head and an open ajna, okay? And of course on the left-hand side we have a defined head and defined ajna. We are deeply trained to create with our brains. I did a podcast interview today with a woman and she was laughing. She said, life and creating good things in life is so simple that it confuses us, that we can't handle the fact that it's so simple, so we have to make really complex systems like human design to explain it to us. So it's simple. All right, so we think we create from our minds, but most of you, 7/8 of us, have an open head and ajna. So whenever you go out in the world, if you have an open head and ajna, you are always taking in other people's inspirations and amplifying them, other people's questions and amplifying them, other people's curiosity and amplifying them, other people's belief systems and thoughts and ideas and amplifying them. And instead of going, whoa, this is a cool idea, let me examine it from all the different potential perspectives that I can, which is what you can do when you have an open head and ajna. You take it in, you amplify it, and you think, I have a great idea. I'm going to go manifest it. And then you go try to make somebody else's idea happen. And then, of course, you probably know what the rest of the story looks like. You use a lot of energy trying to create something that's not really yours to create. You do it with your mind. You push it into form. You put all your energy into it. And then all of a sudden, you get burned out on it. Your energy goes away. And you're left with all this work that you've done that hasn't borne any fruit. This is probably a common story for a lot of you. And it's not because there's anything wrong with you or you're broken or you're stuck. It's just most of us are not trained to create correctly with our energy. And most of us are not trained to understand the nature of our conditioning so that we can discover in the context of all of the energy that we're experiencing how to connect with the truth of who we are so we can create what we really want in our lives. And so we can create the things that really would inspire us and give us joy and delight in our own personal lives. One of the things I do want you to do as I'm going through this little section quickly, I want you to get your chart out, and I want you to notice as I'm going through this, where do you have openness? I'm going to talk about the predictable behavioral patterns that we see in open centers. As I go through this, I want you to look at your chart and see if you can identify or relate to any of these patterns and think about how these patterns might be affecting your capacity to create. So what happens is when we get conditioned in our openness is that what we think we want might not actually be what we want. We use our heads to try to figure things out. So if you have an open head center, you are taking in other people's inspiration and it's putting your mind under pressure. And that pressure oftentimes puts you under pressure to try to figure things out. So when you have an open head center, one of the things I want you to get into the habit of asking yourself when you get an inspiration is, whose inspiration is this? Because you may be experiencing pressure to try to figure out somebody else's inspiration and putting your own energy into something that isn't right for you. By the way, if it's right for you, and this is even true of most manifestors, it's going to show up in your outer reality somehow. You're going to get a sign, somebody's going to say something. The world is going to talk to you and tell you, oh, hey, this is your inspiration. You can follow this one, okay? If you have an open ajna, you are taking in other people's thoughts and beliefs, and you're amplifying them. So if you have a belief about money and you're like, oh, what is that belief? I want you to ask yourself, whose belief is this? It might not be your belief. This might be a belief you've been taking in and amplifying your whole life. And maybe it's time for you to let go of that belief, because maybe it's a belief that's not serving you when it comes to creating abundance in your life. If you have an open throat center, and this is actually true of all generators, projectors, and reflectors to a certain degree. When you have an unmotorized throat, that's a generator or a projector, or you have an open throat, you need attention and recognition to be heard. Oftentimes what happens is when we have the center open or non-motorized is we do things or we make decisions that bring us attention, because when we get attention, we think people are listening to us. So we try to manipulate the energy of others to get attention. And sometimes we do inappropriate things, or we make decisions we don't want to make, but we think it's going to give us good attention. If you have a G center that's open, two things. Number one, sometimes if things aren't manifesting for you and you have an open G, it's because geographically you're in the wrong place. The open G center gets geomagnetically aligned. And that geomagnetic alignment puts you in the right place at the right time to receive the right opportunities. If you're not in the right place, sometimes you'll get stuck. Secondly, when you have an open G center, you take in other people's identities. And it's easy for you to become enmeshed and take in somebody else's desires, somebody else's drive, somebody else's intentions, and get confused about who they belong to because you're enmeshed in somebody else's energy. So really important for you to ask yourself, who am I? Is this me or is this someone else that I'm experiencing? When you have an open will center, and that's most of us, the open will center is a place where we define what's valuable for us. People with an open will center will oftentimes push wealth or abundance away because they question their worth about receiving. So if you have an open will center, I really want you to do this tonight. If you have an open will center, I want you to ask yourself, what do I feel worthy of receiving? Am I really allowing myself to receive to the degree of how valuable I perceive myself to be? Or do I need to change my perception around my value? If you have an open spleen, and actually the spleen can get very complicated either way, even if it's defined, it's a place where we have fear. And it's a fear that can be pushed through very easily simply by taking action. But it's a fear that if we don't act on it can hold us in paralysis. Question I want you to ask yourself, if you have an open spleen, is what am I afraid of? What am I holding on to maybe longer than is good for me out of fear? If you have an open solar plexus, There is a tendency for you to avoid truth and conflict. And there is a tendency for you to give up what you really want because you don't believe it's possible for you to have what you really need and want. That's your baseline frequency of abundance. If you have a defined solar plexus, this is a little bit different. This is not an open center. This is a defined solar plexus. If you have a defined solar plexus, our tendency is to get knocked off of our baseline frequency, particularly when we go low on the wave. You go low on the wave and you start asking yourself, what's wrong with me? And the minute you start asking that and start looking at the low end of the wave, you drop that wave down lower and lower. And when you drop that wave down lower, you bring the baseline frequency down with it. The sacral is designed to be sustainable when it is defined. If you have an open sacral, so if you're a manifestor, projector, and reflector, the most important question you need to be asking yourself consistently is, are my choices sustaining my energy? Am I running on fumes, on energy fumes that I got from somebody else, and I'm running on these fumes for longer than is good for me, and I don't know when enough is enough, and I'm burning myself out? Am I sustaining my energy? That is the question I want you to ask yourself every single day. I want you to ask yourself that question around every single choice you make, because that's the most important thing you can ask yourself. And if you have an open root center, the open root functions with pressure. It gets under pressure to do things. And sometimes when you're not following your strategy, you're not clear about who you are, the pressure that you experience to do things causes you to do things quickly, causes you to do things you don't want to do, and causes you to leap into the fire out of the frying pan. Yeah. And make choices under pressure and then really regret them later. So the question that I really want you to ask yourself if you have an open root is, am I under pressure? What's the worst thing that's going to happen to me if I don't do this right now? Sometimes the answer is nothing. The bottom line here is you don't really know what you truly want until you know who you truly are, not who you're conditioned to be. So who are you? Let me just show you this really quickly. The nature of the design of the chart says, you are designed to be a human being who loves yourself. You are designed to be a human being who has a powerful, unique voice. And a voice that's about determining your own direction in life. You are designed to be, not to do, to be a unique contribution to the cosmos. People always want to say, what am I supposed to do? What's my life purpose? Your life purpose is to be yourself. You're here right now, living and breathing. You're already doing a good bit of it. We are designed to take direction in life by letting go of the past and moving forward with a renewed definition of who we are each and every day. And we're designed to forgive that person 5 years ago who doesn't even exist anymore. We are designed to be deeply connected to spirit as source and to trust source to give our direction in life. We're designed to be vital. We're designed to be supported. And we're designed to be in fellowship with our human beings, other humans. In other words, we're designed to take a direction in life that is rooted in compassion, and that the true nature of our abundance is not only in receiving, but also in giving. Because that's what we all want to do anyway. Isn't that the most fun part about being abundant, is giving it all away? Just, make sure you save some for yourself. Oops. All right, good. Ultimately, we have a powerful new world to create. So we got to get our wands out and get our training wheels on and really get to work practicing how to create in a powerful and effective way, in a new way, because the strategies are changing, so that we can continue to know how to come together and co-create, I think, a world of sustainable peace. I'm ready for it. You guys ready for it? Yeah, me too. All right, good. Thank you all so much for being here. I used to use a puzzle analogy. I don't use it so much anymore because people got sick of it. But here's my new analogy. We are like a tapestry, okay? If you've ever seen a tapestry, the thread is pulled or there's a thread missing. The tapestry is messed up. It's only as beautiful as the sum total of the threads. We are all a unique part of this tapestry, and the beauty of this tapestry is dependent on each and every one of us showing up in our right place with our right colors and our right position with the full fluffiness of our threads. So Whether you realize it or not, you have a unique place in the cosmos. There is no one else like you. There never has been, and there never will be again. So thank you for being who you are, because you are who you are, and you being you makes us who we are. Don't ever forget you have that important place in the cosmos. Give yourself the gift of fulfilling the full expression of who you are and really living out this once in a lifetime event that you are. I want to thank you all for joining me tonight, for being part of co-creating this event and being part of this information. I hope that it has given you some things to think about, some deeper ways of getting to know yourself, and hopefully opened you up to allowing yourself to receive more than maybe you've been allowing yourself to receive right now. So before we go, I want you just to repeat after me. Put your hand over your heart. You ready? There is a part of me that knows exactly what I need to do to fully manifest my abundance right now. That part of me is informing the rest of me right now. I'm receiving this information with grace and ease. Take a nice long deep breath and then let it out. This information transfer is now complete.